Usually when we think about the stock market, we picture it as this massive, unpredictable beast.
Oh, for sure. It's totally chaotic.
Right. I mean, even if you spend your entire life studying the charts or, memorizing earnings reports, there's always that element of risk.
Yeah, it's an educated gamble at the end of the day because the market is ultimately driven by human emotion and, well, millions of microscopic variables.
Variables that nobody, no human, and no algorithm can entirely predict.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the gritty, volatile atmosphere of Wall Street in early 2003. And we really need to set the scene for you to understand the environment we're stepping into today.
Right, because context is everything here.
It really is.
Yep.
So the dot-com bubble has completely burst. The market is just bleeding profusely.
Trillions of dollars in imaginary paper wealth just wiped out.
Gone. You have these seasoned, veteran traders who have been on the floor for decades, losing absolutely everything they have. It was a profoundly grim time to be investing a single dollar.
It was an era defined by extreme financial anxiety. I mean, the irrational exuberance of the late 90s was dead and buried.
How totally.
And on top of the dot-com crash, you have the geopolitical instability following September 11th, the looming Iraq war, and massive corporate scandals like Enron.
Right, WorldCom too. Trust in the market was at an absolute all-time low.
So the people were terrified.
Exactly. And right in the middle of this financial wreckage, we find the ultimate anomaly. An unknown trader, basically a ghost, steps onto the playing field.
A total unknown.
Yeah, and this completely undocumented guy turns an initial investment of $800.
Which is what, the cost of a used smartphone today?
Basically, yeah. He turns $800 into $350 million.
It's just staggering.
And he doesn't do it over a lifetime. He does it in just 14 days.
Which forces us to completely reevaluate our understanding of probability, really.
Oh, 100%.
Because when you look at the mechanics of what it takes to actually achieve that, it is the absolute definition of impossible.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we have a massive stack of sources sitting in front of us for you.
We really do. We're pulling from archival early internet news aggregators, detailed SEC procedural manuals, banking regulations.
And even some really deep dive discussions pulled straight from modern theoretical physics forms.
It gets pretty nerdy later on.
It does. Our mission today is to launch a really detailed investigative exploration into what might be the most legendary, bizarre financial anomaly of the modern age.
The case of Andrew Carlssin.
Exactly. For those of you joining us who are looking for a thrilling urban mystery, you are in the exact right place.
You're gonna love this one.
We are going to dissect the arrest, the missing records, the tabloid origins, and the incredible theories surrounding a man who claimed, sitting in a federal interrogation room, that the reason he could play the stock market so flawlessly
Wait for it.
was because he was a time traveler from the year 2256.
It's just wild. The enduring allure of this specific story is so fascinating to me.
Why do you think it sticks around?
Well, it touches on this very deep, almost romantic fantasy we all share, the allure of having absolute godlike knowledge of the future.
Oh, absolutely. The ultimate cheat code.
Right. And we are going to treat this mystery with the seriousness of a true crime investigation today. We're going to analyze the facts, the glaring flaws, the actual physics, and the psychology behind it.
We're definitely walking a fine line here. We aren't going to instantly dismiss it as a complete farce, because honestly, the institutional response is just too strange.
Yeah, there are some really weird details.
But we certainly aren't going to blindly accept it as the gospel truth either.
No, we have to look at the data.
So before we even get to the sci-fi elements, the time machines, and the government conspiracies, we have to start with the foundational math.
The numbers.
Right. We need to talk about the sheer, terrifying statistical impossibility of what Andrew Carlssin actually did on paper.
Because it wasn't just a couple of lucky guesses.
No. The records indicate he executed 126 consecutive high-risk trades, and he didn't suffer a single loss.
And it actually goes deeper than just saying, he didn't lose.
How so?
Well, to understand the impossibility here, you really have to understand how options trading and extreme leverage work.
Okay, break that down for us.
If you just buy a stock for $800, even if it goes up 1,000%, you only have $8,000.
Right, which is great, but it's not yacht money.
Exactly. To get to $350 million in 2 weeks, Carlssin wasn't just buying blue chip stocks and holding them.
He couldn't have been.
No, he had to be utilizing massive leverage, trading highly volatile options, specifically calls and puts. meaning he was betting aggressively on both the explosive rises and the catastrophic falls of specific companies.
Walk me through that, because to the average person, a stock going up and making money makes sense. But he was making money when the market was bleeding.
Precisely. Through options trading, if you know a stock is going to plummet because of, say, a bad earnings report, you can buy what's called a put option. And if the stock crashes, your put option skyrockets in value. Carlssin was stringing these together.
Like a combo in a video game.
Literally. He would bet everything on a stock crashing, make a fortune, take those completely compounded winnings, and immediately bet everything on another stock surging.
And he did this 126 times in a row.
126 times, rolling the entire principal and the massive profits into the next trade every single time.
I want to really ground this for you listening. If we think about probability, it's like a student walking into a multiple choice exam for a foreign language they have never spoken.
Never even heard before.
Right, and somehow getting a perfect score on a 126 question test. When you see a perfect score like that, it doesn't look like luck. It looks like they stole the answer key.
I'd actually refine that analogy a bit, because what Carlssin did is technically harder than a static test.
How do you mean?
Well, the stock market doesn't have a static answer key. It's highly reactive. It's more like taking a test where the correct answers constantly change based on the mood of the person sitting next to you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great point.
To put it in pure mathematical perspective, hitting 126 perfect, highly volatile leveraged trades in a row is statistically comparable to flipping a standard coin and having it land on heads 500 times in a row.
Which is just, my brain can't even process that.
Right. It is a number so infinitesimally small that for all practical, real-world purposes, it is completely indistinguishable from zero probability.
Which means the system is designed to flag it immediately.
Without a doubt. Even the most sophisticated algorithmic trading systems today, driven by multi-billion-dollar supercomputers, they don't achieve a 100% win rate.
Let alone cross 126 trades.
Exactly. Carlssin was trading erratically across tech stocks, energy sectors, commodities. He was perfectly timing the absolute peaks and the deepest, lowest valleys of a deeply volatile market.
So he wasn't just predicting the weather, he basically knew exactly where every single raindrop was going to land.
That's exactly it.
So naturally, when a brokerage account balloons from $800 to $350 million in 2 weeks, alarms are going to sound all over the financial district.
Oh, every red light on Wall Street was flashing.
And on January 28, 2003, federal investigators, specifically the SEC, finally swoop in. They bring him in handcuffs. They assume they have a massive case of insider trading.
But this is where the standard tried and true playbook for the SEC completely falls apart.
How does that playbook usually work? Because usually with insider trading, it's a very specific crime, right? Like with a recognizable pattern.
Yeah, the protocol is very clear, and the SEC is exceptionally good at it. When a suspicious trade happens, you look for the localized corporate leak.
Like finding the weak link in the chain.
Right. You trace the trades back to a singular source. Did a CEO tell his golfing buddy about an upcoming merger? Did a disgruntled employee leak a bad earnings report to a cousin?
So you just follow the money upstream.
Exactly. You trace the money to find the tipster. Insider trading is almost always localized. It's specific to one company or maybe one specific supply chain.
So they pull Carlssin's records. They look at his 126 perfect trades across all these completely unrelated industries, and they hit a massive, echoing dead end.
The friction for the investigators must have been just incredibly frustrating.
I can't even imagine.
They're looking at this guy's sprawling portfolio, desperately trying to connect the dots between a biotech company, an energy firm, and a tech startup, and realizing there is no tipster.
There's no central hub.
None. Carlssin wasn't trading on one leaked piece of news from a single boardroom. He was playing the entire global market like a grand piano.
And the lack of any recognizable pattern meant the SEC had absolutely nothing to leverage. They couldn't squeeze him on his connections because there were no connections.
There's nothing to work with at all.
So they bring Carlssin into an interrogation room, and they're fully expecting a high-pressure situation, where they grind him down, he breaks, and he gives up his massive network of co-conspirators.
They want a quick, tidy confession of highly orchestrated corporate fraud.
But what they got instead was a scenario flipped straight out of a sci-fi novel.
The psychology of this interrogation is truly gripping.
Right, because typical white-collar criminals don't act like this.
Exactly. The Bernie Madoffs, the Enron executives, They follow a very predictable behavioral pattern when cornered.
They immediately lawyer up.
Yep. They plead the fifth, they sweat, they deflect, they deny everything.
And they demand their attorney handle all the communication.
But the sources detailing this event indicate that Andrew Carlssin did none of those things.
Which is the first major red flag.
He didn't demand a lawyer. He was remarkably calm, highly precise, and completely cooperative.
You're just chilling in the interrogation room.
Yeah, he sat across that stainless steel table from federal agents, and he didn't deny making the trades. He openly, cheerfully admitted to executing every single one of them.
He just had a slightly different explanation for his methodology than they were expecting.
Just a bit.
He sits there, presumably looking entirely normal, and tells the investigators that he knew the outcomes of these 126 trades because, to him, the year 2002 was ancient documented history.
He drops the absolute bomb on these federal agents.
He claims to be a time traveler from the year 2256.
And what's brilliant about this specific claim, and I mean brilliant in a tragic, deeply ironic sense, is the reason he gives for getting caught.
Yes, this is my favorite part of the entire narrative.
If we suspend disbelief and assume for a moment the premise is true, right? You have a time traveler armed with godlike omniscience, possessing centuries of pristine historical data, and he commits the most obvious, fundamental, amateur human mistake possible.
Raw, unadulterated greed.
Exactly.
He actually tells them, "I got caught in the moment." He admits to being sloppy.
It's amazing.
He says his original, carefully calculated plan was to make it look natural. He was supposed to lose a little here, lose a little there, blend in with the normal market fluctuations.
Fly under the radar.
Right. But the temptation of sitting at a terminal and seeing the exact, verifiable future of these stocks was just too great.
He just couldn't resist.
He couldn't resist pulling the trigger on guaranteed massive winners. His ambition and his dopamine totally overrode his caution.
It highlights a profound emotional tragedy regarding his supposed situation, really.
How so?
Well, if you view this through a literary or psychological lens, it's a classic hubris narrative. You have a traveler immensely far from his home in 2256, stranded in what to him is a primitive, highly volatile era.
Right, surrounded by cavemen, basically.
And his own lack of discipline, his purely human inability to moderate his greed, is what ultimately dooms his covert mission and lands him in a bleak federal holding cell.
It makes the character of Carlssin incredibly relatable.
It really does.
It's the ultimate I flew too close to the sun story, but, with leveraged stock options instead of wax wings.
Perfect analogy.
So he's sitting in the hot seat. He's confessed to being a chrononaut from the 23rd century. And the feds are obviously looking at him like he is experiencing a profound psychological break.
They probably thought he was completely unhinged.
But Carlssin is pragmatic. He tries to make a deal. He wants leniency. He just wants them to let him walk out the door so he can return to his hidden timecraft, which of course he absolutely refuses to tell them the location of.
And that refusal to locate the craft is a fascinating detail.
Why do you think he withheld that?
He claims he cannot reveal the location or the mechanics of the machine out of fear it might fall into the wrong hands. Presumably the US government's hands, which he believes would drastically alter the timeline.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
It's a highly convenient excuse for someone who doesn't actually have a time machine, sure, but it is also logically sound if you are genuinely a time traveler adhering to some sort of temporal prime directive.
But he knows that simply refusing to show them the machine isn't going to get him out of Rikers Island.
No, he needs a bargaining chip.
Exactly. To prove he's telling the truth, he offers them specific, verifiable, world-altering information. And we need to be clear here for you listening, this isn't some psychic hotline nonsense.
No vague predictions here.
Right. He isn't giving them like Nostradamus-style predictions like a great leader will fall in the East. He gives them hard, actionable, immediate data.
The offers he allegedly makes are incredibly strategic, and we need to look at the historical context of early 2003 to really understand their weight.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, he offers the exact, precise location of Osama bin Laden.
Wow.
Yeah. In January 2003, bin Laden was the most wanted man on the planet, actively being hunted by the most powerful military and intelligence networks in human history.
The ultimate high-value target.
Second, he offers a confirmed, synthesizable medical cure for AIDS, which was a massive global health crisis at the time.
Huge.
And third, he offers the exact date and strategic details of the upcoming U.S. invasion of Iraq.
This is where the interrogation strategy completely twists my brain.
Why is that?
Why make these specific offers? I mean, if you're a con man trying to buy time, aren't these the absolute worst possible lies to tell?
What you're hitting on is a foundational problem in criminal profiling.
Real.
Yes. If we connect this to the mechanics of criminal psychology, offering immediately verifiable information like the GPS coordinates of a high-value terrorist target is an incredibly bold, almost suicidal move for a fraud.
Right, because they could just go check.
Exactly. If you are a cornered con artist, making that specific offer destroys your con instantly, because the FBI could verify that location within hours. They send a drone, they check the satellite imagery.
If he's not there, the jig is up.
If it's a lie, the facade crumbles before the day is out, and you lose all your leverage.
So the fact that he offered it.
The strategic vagueness of keeping the time machine hidden, paired with the hyper-specific, actionable military intelligence he offered, reportedly left the investigators genuinely unsettled.
I bet. They walked into that room expecting a slick, arrogant Wall Street bro who's going to try and negotiate a plea deal for a minimum security prison.
Instead, they have this remarkably calm man offering them a medical miracle and the biggest geopolitical targets in the world in exchange for access to a time machine.
It's wild. But getting arrested and giving a bizarre confession is really only half the problem here.
The real impossible puzzle starts when the investigators do their standard due diligence.
Right. They try to figure out who they actually arrested, because they run a standard background check on Andrew Carlssin, and what they find is, well, they find a ghost in the machine.
They found a terrifying absolute void.
Literally nothing.
According to every database available to the federal government, before December 2002, Andrew Carlssin simply did not exist.
I want to really emphasize the mechanics of this for you listening, because in the modern world, being a ghost is practically impossible.
It's harder than people think.
When we say no records, we mean a total blackout. No birth certificate, no social security number, no school transcripts, no tax returns, no medical records, no employment history, nothing.
To truly appreciate the anomaly here, we have to talk about the bureaucratic reality of the United States in early 2003.
Right, post 9/11.
Exactly. This is shortly after the passing of the USA Patriot Act in October 2001. Title III of the Patriot Act instituted massive sweeping regulations on the banking industry, specifically aimed at preventing money laundering and terrorist financing.
So the banks were on high alert.
Oh, extreme alert. These are known as KYC, or Know Your Customer regulations.
So you couldn't just walk into a bank with a briefcase of cash and open an account under a fake name anymore.
Absolutely not. The scrutiny was at an all-time high. To open a brokerage account and deposit $800 in December 2002, you had to pass through a rigid identity verification process.
You'd need some serious documentation.
You needed a verifiable social security number, a government-issued photo ID, and usually a physical address tied to a credit history.
And what if he was just using a really good fake ID?
Even the very best false identities, the ones crafted by state intelligence agencies like the CIA or high-level organized crime syndicates, they have edges.
What do you mean by edges?
They have a paper trail you can trace, even if the documents are forged. You can find the seams where the fake life was stitched into reality. A fake SSN will eventually bounce against a dead end in a database somewhere.
But Carlson's didn't bounce.
No, his identity didn't bounce. It simply wasn't there prior to that exact month. His absence of a past was absolute.
It's genuinely chilling. You have a man who navigated the most paranoid, heavily surveilled financial system in the world, opened a heavily regulated trading account, and yet possessed no history prior to the exact month he started making impossible trades.
It defies all logic.
And this complete lack of a paper trail makes what happens next in the story so incredibly baffling.
The transition is jarring.
Because we move from a man who physically does not exist on paper to a highly documented, rigorous legal process that suddenly, inexplicably, evaporates into thin air.
Let's examine the mechanics of his custody.
Okay?
Carlssin is processed and held at Rikers Island.
Yeah.
The federal court sets his bail at $1 million.
Which makes sense for someone who just made $350 million.
Right. Now, logic and standard legal procedure dictate that a man with absolutely no documented past, who only started trading with an $800 bank account 2 weeks prior, should be entirely stuck.
He's a massive flight risk.
He is the ultimate flight risk. He should be sitting in that concrete cell until his trial begins.
But he doesn't sit in the cell. Against all odds, the $1 million bail is paid in full by an anonymous benefactor.
And this is where the legal reality clashes violently with the myth. We really need to explain how $1 million bail actually functions in the New York federal court system.
It's not like the movies, is it?
Not at all. It is not a movie trope where someone drops a briefcase full of unmarked, non-sequential bills on a desk and walks out with the prisoner.
Right.
$1 million bail requires massive documentation. It typically involves bail bondsmen who require an exorbitant premium, usually 10%, so $100,000 in clean cash.
Just collateral.
Exactly. Plus collateral to cover the remaining $900,000. It requires financial disclosures, heavily monitored bank transfers, and strict oversight by a federal judge.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, by design, within the American legal system, that kind of money is meticulously, unavoidably traceable.
Yes.
There has to be a paper trail for the bail.
Unequivocally. The anomaly here isn't just that the money miraculously appeared, it's that the identity of the benefactor remains a complete, enduring mystery to the public.
How is that even possible?
The paper trail for that $1 million definitely exists somewhere in the court registry. The bondsman's name, the bank routing numbers, the signature of the person putting up the collateral, it's all there.
But nobody knows who it was.
It was never publicly followed, and the source was never disclosed by the authorities or the media.
It's like someone with immense, terrifying power and unlimited resources stepped out of the shadows, navigated a complex legal bureaucracy flawlessly, dropped $1 million on the counter, and the entire justice system just looked the other way.
It certainly paints that picture.
And once the bail is paid, Carlssin walks out of custody. He has a scheduled court hearing set for April 3rd, 2003.
Right.
But of course, when April 3rd rolls around, he vanishes without a single trace.
He essentially evaporates from reality just as quickly as he entered it. He jumps bail.
And what's staggering is that despite being at the center of a $350 million financial anomaly, there is no massive televised manhunt.
None.
His face isn't plastered on the evening news. He is just gone. But the most suspicious institutional response in this entire saga, the specific detail that keeps this mystery alive for investigators today, is what allegedly happened to his case file.
The sealed file.
Yes, the sealed file. Okay, I have to push back here because this is the part that makes zero sense to me from a legal perspective.
It's definitely the sticking point.
Why on earth would an insider trading case involving a guy who just jumped $1 million bail and humiliated the SEC ever be sealed from the public?
That is the pivotal question that elevates this from a simple fraud story to a potential cover-up.
Okay, explain the process.
In the United States federal judicial system, sealing a court docket, completely hiding it from the PACER system, which is the public access to court electronic records, is not standard procedure for a failed white-collar fraud prosecution.
Right, you don't seal a file just because the SEC is embarrassed that they lost the suspect.
Precisely. If he's a fraud, they'd want his face everywhere to catch him.
Exactly.
Sealed files are typically governed by acts like the Classified Information Procedures Act, or CPA.
Which deals with, what, spy stuff?
Pretty much. They are reserved for a very narrow, highly sensitive set of circumstances. Matters of profound national security, highly classified military information, or ongoing covert intelligence operations where exposure would get people killed.
So if Carlssin was just a really clever fraudster, con artist who found a glitch in the trading software, made a fortune, then ran away, there is absolutely no legal basis to seal the paperwork of his arrest and his bail.
None whatsoever. If it was a simple fraud, the records of his processing, his mugshot, the bail bondsman's details, the SEC's initial filings, they should all be public record.
Anyone with a PACER account could look it up.
Exactly, accessible to any journalist. The act of sealing the file suggests that a federal judge determined that public disclosure of this specific case would cause specific documentable harm to the United States.
Wow.
It implies that there was something in that file, perhaps the verifiable proof of his 126 trades, or the identity of the mysterious benefactor that could not see the light of day.
which just pours absolute gasoline on the fire of the time traveler theory.
It really does.
I mean, if he really gave them the coordinates for bin Laden, and the military realized the intel was perfectly accurate, they would lock that file down faster than anything in history.
Without a second thought.
But wait, there was a brief bizarre update later on, wasn't there? A few years later, in 2006.
There was a very brief, almost surreal follow-up report surfaced, claiming that Carlssin had made a phone call to a contact.
What did he say?
He claimed to be alive, well, and living in Toronto, Canada, and he stated that he was busy setting up an oil extraction company in Alberta.
An oil extraction company.
Yep.
I mean, of course, if you are a guy from the future who knows exactly where all the untapped resource veins are historically located, you wouldn't go back to the stock market where you got caught.
Too risky.
You'd go straight to the physical source. You'd just buy cheap land that you already know sits on massive oil reserves.
Exactly. It's a highly logical pivot for a time traveler who has learned from his previous mistake.
Very smart.
And the most interesting part of this 2006 update was his claim that he had reached a, quote, mutual understanding with the authorities.
A mutual understanding.
Essentially, implying a covert deal was struck, allowing him to leave the country quietly and keep his wealth, provided he completely disappeared and ceased drawing attention to the timeline.
Okay, so the subject has vanished into the Canadian oil fields. The files are allegedly sealed away in some dark government vault, and we are left holding this incredible, impossible story.
It's quite the narrative.
But to really understand this deep dive, to figure out how this story actually permeated our culture, we have to turn our attention away from the man himself and look at exactly where the public first learned about this anomaly.
Because it didn't come from a press release.
No, it didn't. This takes us into the sensational origin and the tabloid trap.
This is where we need to peel back the curtain and deeply examine the media landscape of the early 2000s.
Take us back.
Because the original source that broke the Andrew Carlssin story was not the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. It was a publication called the Weekly World News.
And for those listening who might be too young to remember the era of print media, we need to heavily contextualize what the Weekly World News was.
It's important to set the stage here.
Founded in 1979 by Generoso Pope Jr., it was famous for being this cheap, black and white print tabloid that you would see staring up at you at the supermarket checkout line.
It was decidedly not a bastion of rigorous investigative journalism.
Not even close. To set the scene for you, this is the exact same publication that broke the news of Bat Boy.
Oh, Bat Boy.
Yeah, a terrifying half-human, half-bat mutant found in a cave who later supposedly endorsed Al Gore for president.
A classic.
They ran regular front-page stories about Plod, an alien who was allegedly having a torrid affair with Hillary Clinton.
Naturally.
They reported on headless human cloning farms, and they were very insistent over multiple issues that Elvis was alive, well, and thriving on Mars.
It was a publication entirely devoted to inventing fantastically fictitious stories, keeping its tongue firmly embedded in its cheek.
Just pure entertainment.
Exactly. It was entertainment masquerading as news. And the original article about Andrew Carlssin, published on February 25, 2003, was penned by a writer named Chad Colkin.
Okay.
And the April follow-up detailing his miraculous disappearance was written by Mike Foster. And notably, Mike Foster was the exact same intrepid photojournalist credited with covering the aforementioned headless cloning farms.
Okay, stop right there, because this is the biggest hurdle for me.
It's a big one.
The story originates right next to an article about an alien dating a politician. How on earth did a story-sharing page space with Batboy manage to break containment and cause a legitimate global media frenzy? Because people took this seriously.
They did, and that is the defining media literacy failure of this entire saga. It has to do with the architecture of the early internet.
Okay, break that down.
The crucial turning point, the catalyst that ignited the global fire, happened on March 19th, 2003. Yahoo News, which at the time was a massively powerful, highly trafficked, and generally credible internet news aggregator, reprinted the Weekly World News article.
But why would Yahoo News reprint a tabloid joke?
Because of how early web scraping and aggregation algorithms functioned.
So it was automated.
Exactly. In 2003, news APIs and RSS feeds were essentially dumb pipes. They were designed to scrape text from partner sites to populate Yahoo's portal.
Oh, I see.
Yahoo had a partnership with the parent company of the tabloid, and the algorithm automatically pulled the Andrew Carlssin story and placed it in their entertainment news and gossip section.
So the machine didn't know it was a joke, it just saw a headline and body text and copied it over.
Exactly. And this caused a massive phenomenon known as context collapse.
Context collapse.
Think about it this way. It's like taking a joke written in crayon on a clown's costume, cutting it out, and pasting it perfectly onto official White House letterhead.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to put it.
The container completely changed the reality of the text. When people saw the story on their early broadband connections, they didn't see the Weekly World News banner.
They didn't see Batboy looking at them.
Right, they didn't see the bogus warning context that comes from physically holding a tabloid full of aliens at a grocery store. They saw the very sterile, authoritative Yahoo News logo.
It gained instant, completely unwarranted credibility just because of the website hosting it.
Exactly.
And once it was on Yahoo, other legitimate global news outlets, wire services, and magazines across the world saw it. They assumed Yahoo had vetted it.
Which they hadn't.
And they picked it up as a real developing story about a bizarre SEC arrest. They translated it and reported it verbatim as fact.
And the real-world consequences of this technological glitch were immediate and severe.
What happened?
The SEC and the FBI switchboards in Washington and New York were suddenly flooded with a rash of inquiries.
The press.
Serious journalists from multiple countries were calling, demanding confirmation about a time-traveling insider trader.
That is hilarious.
It created such a massive operational headache that an actual SEC spokesman had to step up to a podium and issue an official on-the-record denial to the press.
Yeah.
He reportedly gave this weary sigh and said the story was pure fantasy, complaining that it belonged in the same filing cabinet as Elvis' shrine found on Mars.
I can just imagine that poor SEC spokesman rubbing his temples, wondering how his law degree led him to debunking time travel in front of the International Press Corps.
It must have been surreal for them.
But here's the chilling thought experiment for you listening. This brings up a conspiracy theory that emerges directly from this exact media failure. It's known in intelligence circles as the tabloid trap.
This is where it gets really interesting.
If the federal government actually managed to catch a real time traveler, how would they hide it from the public?
It raises a fascinating, highly pragmatic question about counterintelligence strategies. The tabloid trap theory explores the idea that intelligence agencies occasionally use known satirical tabloids as containers for highly classified, unbelievable truths.
Right.
It is a brilliant psychological deflection strategy.
Walk with me on this logic. If you were the FBI and you have a secret so massive, so reality-breaking, like actual functioning time travel, that you can't just shred the documents, what do you do?
Because you can't just erase everything.
No. You have a paper trail, you have court records, you have a bail bondsman who saw the guy, you have witnesses in the holding cell. You can't just pretend it didn't happen. So you meticulously plant the absolute, unaltered truth of the event in the Weekly World News.
By doing so, you ensure the story instantly discredits itself. You hide the truth in plain sight by deliberately labeling it as absolute fiction.
It's genius.
If any serious investigative journalist from the New York Times or the Washington Post tries to look into Andrew Carlssin, they see the origin source. They immediately associate the story with Batboy, fake alien autopsies, and Elvis sightings.
And they drop it.
They drop the investigation immediately because touching it would ruin their journalistic credibility. It is the ultimate inoculation against public scrutiny.
It's like the men in black reading the supermarket tabloids for the real news, because the actual newspapers are just covering up the mundane stuff.
It's basically that exact plot point, yeah.
If you want to make absolutely sure nobody ever takes a dangerous story seriously, you make sure a famous joke publication prints it first.
It's a fascinating, deeply paranoid theory, but from a purely mechanical standpoint, it logically holds water as an effective counterintelligence tactic.
It does.
Yeah.
It weaponizes the public's own media literacy against them.
Whoa.
Which brings us to a major pivot point in our investigation.
Let's shift gears.
We've looked at the math of the trades, the deep legal anomalies of the bail, and the mechanical origins of the media frenzy. But what if we suspend our disbelief entirely for a moment?
Okay, let's play along.
What if we bypass the tabloid origin, take Carlssin's claims seriously, and look at them through the lens of actual science? This brings us to the realm of theoretical physics and parallel realities.
Oh, this is the good stuff.
Yes! Let's get nerdy for a second. Because if a guy sitting in a room in 2003 is going to claim with a straight face that he jumped from 2256, how could that theoretically, mechanically work?
Well, if we delve into the deep end of theoretical physics, The concept of time travel isn't entirely dismissed by the scientific community, particularly when you start dealing with the extreme environments of the cosmos.
So it's not totally impossible.
We have to start with Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity, which fundamentally changed how we view the universe. Relativity shows that space and time are not separate, static things. They are inextricably linked into a single dynamic fabric known as space-time.
Think of it like a massive trampoline, right?
Exactly. If you place a heavy bowling ball, representing a star or a black hole, on the trampoline, the fabric sags and warps around it.
Okay, I'm visualizing that.
And relativity mathematically allows for the possibility that this fabric of space-time can be warped so severely that it actually folds over onto itself.
So we're talking about wormholes.
The scientific term is an Einstein-Rosen bridge. If the fabric folds, a tunnel, a wormhole, could theoretically connect two completely disparate, distant points in space-time.
How does that look in practice?
Imagine an ant walking across a piece of paper. It takes a long time to get from top to bottom. But if you fold the paper so the top and bottom touch, the ant can step instantly from one end to the other.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense.
Furthermore, the late brilliant theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking discussed the mathematical concept of closed time-like curves, or CTCs.
What exactly is a closed time-like curve? Break that down for me like I'm 5.
Imagine you are walking along a path that goes constantly forward, but the path itself is drawn on the surface of a cylinder or a donut.
Okay.
Eventually, by moving strictly forward, you end up exactly where you started. A CTC is a path in the warped fabric of space-time that essentially loops back on itself.
Oh, I see.
If a spacecraft could find and follow a stable CTC, you could theoretically arrive at an event that coincides with your own past.
So quantum physics and general relativity leave the door cracked open just a tiny microscopic bit for the mathematical possibility of time travel.
Just a tiny bit, yes.
But if we crack that door, we immediately run into a massive brick wall of temporal paradoxes. And if you go on modern internet forums today, like the time travel subreddit, you will find amateur physicists tearing this Andrew Carlssin story apart entirely based on those paradoxes.
The discussions on those forums are actually incredibly insightful and rigorous.
They really do their homework.
One prominent user points out the most obvious, glaring flaw regarding the butterfly effect.
Right. If you believe the traditional pop culture rules of time travel, like in Back to the Future or Sound of Thunder, stepping on a single bug in the past fundamentally changes the entire future.
Everything ripples outward.
So if Andrew Carlssin arrived in 2002 and started making massive, violent ripples in the stock market, extracting $350 million from the global economy, his actions should have fundamentally destabilized our timeline.
Absolutely. The displacement of that much capital would change who got rich, who went bankrupt, which companies survived, and ultimately who met whom and had children.
It changes the whole world.
It would cause massive financial anomalies and completely unpredictable butterfly effects that would echo forward, likely erasing Carlson's own 2256 reality. So the critical question the forum asks is, why didn't our timeline collapse or shift noticeably when he made those trades?
And the community answer to that question relies on something even more mind-bending than a wormhole, the multiverse theory, or the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Correct. The many worlds theory suggests that time travel doesn't actually change the traveler's original past. The universe protects itself from paradoxes.
How does it do that?
Instead, the exact moment a traveler arrives in the past and makes a single change, like stepping on that bug or placing a single stock trade, they instantly create a brand new parallel branching timeline.
I love this analogy. I saw a user explain it perfectly. It's like driving down a massive highway and deciding to take a brand new exit.
Right.
You aren't changing the road you were just driving on. That highway still exists exactly as it did. You are just starting an entirely new path. Your original timeline, the 2256 that Carlssin came from, continues on exactly as it was, entirely unaffected, without him in it.
That is a perfect visualization. If time travel operates on this multiverse principle, then Carlson's actions didn't alter his original 2256 timeline at all.
You just left it behind.
He simply entered a nearly identical parallel version of 2002 and began aggressively altering this specific branch, which leads to a profound, almost unsettling philosophical point raised by these internet sleuths: the illusion of continuity.
Wait, slow down. Explain the illusion of continuity to me. Because if he changed things, why wouldn't we, living here in this timeline, notice that things had been messed with?
we wouldn't notice a single thing, because from our perspective, living inside this specific newly created branch, Andrew Carlssin has always been a part of our history.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have memories of an alternate timeline where he didn't exist or didn't make those trades because we are native to the timeline where he does. As one incredibly astute user put it, if a time traveler changes the past so that something no longer ever happened, then from our perspective, it always didn't happen.
Okay, that bends the mind a little bit. It means that by traveling back to our time and getting stuck here, or escaping to Canada with his money to drill for oil, Carlssin ultimately abandoned his original reality entirely.
Complete detachment.
He left his family, his friends, his original 2256 behind, purely to live a rich, comfortable life in ours. He wasn't on a noble mission to fix the past or stop a war. He was just migrating to a new dimension for selfish financial gain.
It's a remarkably cynical, deeply selfish use of a miraculous universe-bending technology.
It really is.
Which, ironically, is exactly what grounds the story in very believable human nature. It's not about saving the world, it's about finding a loophole to get obscenely rich.
So what does this all mean for us, sitting here trying to make sense of this massive web of SEC procedures, internet glitches, and quantum mechanics? Let's bring this home.
Let's summarize it.
We've covered the impossible math of the 126 trades, the psychological anomaly of the interrogation, the vanishing act fueled by anonymous millions, the tabloid origins that spread across the globe, and the quantum physics required to make it real.
It's quite a list.
Why does the legend of Andrew Carlssin survive so stubbornly, decades after it supposedly happened?
I believe it survives because it represents the ultimate convergence of two very deep, very powerful human desires.
Which are?
The universal fantasy of absolute financial freedom and the alluring, boundless mystery of science fiction. Carlssin serves as the folk hero of the modern rigged market.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
For anyone who has ever lost money or felt cheated by the system, he embodies the dream that if we just had a little more information, a little more foresight, we could finally beat the house.
But he's also a potent, highly relevant cautionary tale. This story perfectly encapsulates the dangers of rapid media consumption in the digital age.
We have to be careful what we read.
It shows us how easily the vital context of a story can be stripped away by unthinking algorithms, and how our own confirmation bias, our desperate desire to believe in the impossible or to find an easy, magical path to wealth, can make us readily accept a supermarket tabloid joke as literal, developing truth.
It teaches us the vital importance of investigating the origins of the media we consume. Tracing the provenance of a story, understanding the container it came in, is often far more important than the sensational content of the story itself.
Exactly. We have to look at the letterhead, not just the text. But before we let you go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought. A paradox to mull over on your own time as you navigate the news this week.
Something to think about.
We easily, casually dismiss time travel in our daily lives because we look around and we don't see any obvious time travelers among us. No one is walking down Wall Street in a silver suit, predicting the future or stopping disasters.
But consider the logic. If a time traveler were truly perfect at their job, if they executed their insertion and their mission flawlessly, they would be completely invisible to us.
We'd never know.
They would blend in seamlessly with the historical noise.
But humans, no matter what century they're from, make mistakes. Greed is a universal constant. So what if a time traveler did slip up?
What if they got greedy?
What if they let their ambition take over and made 126 perfect, mathematically impossible stock trades? If that happened and the authorities caught them, the institutional response would absolutely not be a highly publicized, televised trial.
It would cause mass panic.
It would destabilize the very concept of free will, ruin the global economy, and ignite a geopolitical war over the technology. The response would be exactly what we see here: a quietly processed bail, a permanently sealed federal file, and a bizarre, unbelievable story purposefully planted in a satirical supermarket tabloid to ensure that nobody, no matter how credible, ever took it seriously.
So ask yourself this. What if the absolute best, most compelling evidence for the existence of time travel is a story that everyone knows is just a joke?
That is the beautiful, murky, enduring tension of this case. You're left staring into the diagnostic muddy waters, where the lines between a brilliantly executed internet hoax and a reality-breaking truth are entirely, perhaps intentionally, blurred.
Thanks for joining us on this one.
Thanks for taking the plunge with us. Until next time, keep questioning what you read, look for the source of the story, and maybe keep a very close eye on those impossible winning streaks.